What if I told you that 99% of people watching this right now will completely miss the biggest wealth transfer happening in financial history? And the shocking part, they won't miss it because they lack information. They'll miss it because they don't understand the psychology of how money actually moves. While banks quietly integrate game-changing technology, while institutions secretly accumulate positions, while regulatory clarity finally arrives, 99% of the crowd will still be distracted, uncertain, and watching from the sidelines. But the 1% who understand the pattern, they're already positioned. The question is, which group will you be? Welcome back to Updates XRP Pulse Report, the channel where we break down everything you need to know about XRP and the cryptocurrency market with real analysis, not hype. I'm your host, and today we're diving into something that could genuinely shift how you think about financial opportunities in the digital age. This isn't speculation or clickbait. This is about understanding why most people miss massive wealth transfers, and more importantly, how you can position yourself differently. So stick around, because what we're covering in the next few minutes might just change your perspective on where things are heading in the financial world. Here's something most people don't want to admit. When we look at major financial transformations throughout history, whether it's the early internet boom, the rise of tech giants, or even Bitcoin's early days, a clear pattern emerges. The majority of people either completely miss the opportunity or come in far too late to capture any real gains. It's not because they're uninformed or lack access, it's because they wait for validation that never comes until the window has already closed. Think about it this way. When something is so obvious that everyone's talking about it, when it's trending on every social media platform and making headlines everywhere, where do you think we are in the cycle? We're already deep into the awareness phase, which means the biggest moves have already happened. The early movers, the people who saw the potential before anyone else was talking about it, they've already positioned themselves. They're the ones sitting comfortably while the rest of the crowd is just starting to notice something might be happening. This is the fundamental truth that separates the 1% who actually benefit from wealth transfers from the 99% who simply watch it happen around them. Understanding this pattern is the first step to changing which group you end up in. Now let's talk about what makes XRP different from just another cryptocurrency floating around in the market. XRP wasn't created as some random token designed to pump in price and dump on people who buy at the top. It was specifically engineered to solve a real, tangible problem that affects billions of dollars every single day: cross-border payments. Right now, if you need to send money internationally, you're dealing with a system that was basically built decades ago and hasn't fundamentally changed since then. Banks use intermediaries. Money gets stuck in correspondent banking networks. Transfers take days when they should take minutes. Fees pile up along the way because multiple banks are taking cuts. The entire system is incredibly inefficient, and trillions of dollars get caught up in this outdated infrastructure every single year. XRP's entire purpose is to fix this. It's designed to be a bridge asset that allows banks and financial institutions to move money instantly across borders with minimal fees. The technology isn't theoretical either. Major financial institutions have already been testing it. Some are already integrating it into their systems. This isn't speculation about what might happen in the future. This is infrastructure being built right now in the background while most people are distracted by price charts and social media noise. What's really interesting here is the disconnect between what's actually happening and what most people believe is happening. While institutional adoption is quietly accelerating, while partnerships are being formed, while the groundwork for a massive shift in how global payments work is being laid down, the retail investing community is mostly focused on one thing only: price. People are constantly refreshing their portfolio apps, checking charts every 5 minutes, and trying to predict whether the price will go up or down in the next week. Meanwhile, the people who actually understand what XRP is designed for and what problem it solves are looking at much bigger pictures. They're watching adoption metrics, they're tracking which institutions are implementing the technology, they're studying regulatory developments, they're understanding that real value doesn't come from hype cycles. It comes from actual utility and real-world use cases that solve trillion-dollar problems. This is precisely why we see such a massive divide between those who benefit from moves in XRP and those who simply get whipped around by volatility while missing the bigger story entirely. Let me break down what we're actually looking at right now in terms of where we are in this whole cycle. There's a phase that happens before every major wealth transfer, and it's called the accumulation phase. This is where we are with XRP today, and honestly, it's the most uncomfortable phase to be in because nothing seems to be happening on the surface. The price might be moving sideways or even down. There's no mainstream media coverage making it seem urgent. Influencers aren't hyping it up. Regular people aren't talking about it at dinner table. It feels boring. It feels like nothing is happening. But behind the scenes, things are actually moving quite a bit. Institutions are quietly building positions. Banks are running pilots with the technology. Regulatory clarity is slowly improving in different jurisdictions. Development teams are working on scaling solutions. The people who understand markets and cycles know that this is actually the best time to position yourself because this is when prices are reasonable, when you're not competing with millions of people trying to buy the same thing, and when your conviction is actually being tested. The accumulation phase rewards patience and knowledge. It punishes impatience and emotional decision-making. The reason most people miss this phase is pretty straightforward when you think about it. Our brains are wired to react to immediate stimuli. We see something moving up quickly and we feel like we're missing out. We see something staying flat and we feel like we're wasting our time. We hear criticism or bad news and we panic. This is how humans naturally operate, and it's been ingrained in us through evolution for survival reasons. But in markets, these exact same instincts that kept us safe from predators thousands of years ago now work against us. The very instinct that makes us follow the herd is the same instinct that keeps us out of real opportunities. The people who capture most of the value in major financial shifts are the ones who can overcome these natural human instincts. They can sit with uncertainty, they can hold positions when everyone around them thinks they're crazy. They can ignore the noise and focus on fundamentals. This requires a level of conviction that most people simply don't develop because it requires education, it requires discipline, and it requires having a long-term perspective instead of a short-term one. Let's talk specifically about the conviction factor, because this is actually the difference between people who benefit from opportunities and people who just watch them pass by. Anyone can buy XRP. The barrier to entry is incredibly low. You can open an exchange account in minutes and purchase some XRP just like that. But actually holding it through the uncertainty phase, through the periods where nothing seems to be happening, through the criticism and the doubt that constantly swirls around cryptocurrency in general, that's something very different. Most people who buy early end up selling early too. Not because the thesis was wrong, but because the emotional discomfort of waiting becomes too much. They convince themselves they made a mistake. They find reasons to doubt the investment. They start comparing XRP to other assets that are getting more attention. And then when things actually do start moving, they've already exited. They're the people watching from the sidelines saying, "I could have done that," instead of being the people who actually did it. Conviction isn't about blind faith or ignoring risks. It's about doing your homework, understanding the fundamentals, accepting the volatility as part of the process, and having enough confidence in your analysis to not panic when things get uncomfortable. That's the mindset that separates the winners from the rest. Here's something really important that people often miss when they talk about wealth transfer opportunities. Even if you're early, even if you buy XRP when it's still relatively unknown and cheap, that doesn't automatically mean you're going to capture significant wealth. Your behavior, your strategy, and your discipline matter just as much as your timing. I'll give you an example. Someone buys XRP when it's still cheap. They feel excited about their decision, they feel like they're ahead of the curve, but then the market doesn't immediately reward them. Days turn into weeks, weeks turn into months. The price fluctuates slightly, but nothing dramatic happens. Doubt starts creeping in. They start second-guessing themselves. They look at other assets and see them moving up. They wonder if they made a mistake. And then just as they decide to sell and cut their losses, the market finally starts moving. Prices begin climbing. Momentum builds. Suddenly the news that they ignored for months becomes everywhere. But by that point, they've already exited. They missed the real move because they couldn't manage the emotional experience of waiting. This happens constantly, and it happens to early investors just as much as late ones. The people who actually benefit are the ones who have a plan and stick to it. They're not checking prices every 5 minutes. They're not letting daily volatility dictate whether they're happy with their position or not. They've done their research, they've positioned themselves, and they've decided on a time horizon that makes sense for their thesis. Whether that's months or years, they understand that wealth transfer doesn't happen in days. It happens over extended periods, and during those extended periods there will be multiple moments where they question their decision. There will be points where the whole market goes down and everyone's panicking. There will be times when nothing seems to be happening at all. The ones who succeed are the ones who remain calm through all of that, who don't panic sell at the bottom, and who don't get greedy and sell at the first sign of a significant move. This is why risk management and position sizing actually matter enormously. You want to have enough in XRP that you care about its success, but not so much that a major correction sends you into panic mode. That balance is different for every person depending on their financial situation, but finding it is critical. Another huge reason why most people fail to capture wealth even when they have early access to an opportunity is simply lack of education. There's a massive difference between buying something because you heard about it from an influencer and actually understanding what you own and why it has value. With XRP, taking the time to understand its role in solving cross-border payment problems puts you in a completely different position than someone who just knows XRP is a cryptocurrency and nothing else. The people who invest time in understanding adoption trends, who track which institutions are implementing the technology, who follow regulatory developments, and who actually comprehend how the network functions, these people have an enormous advantage. When something negative hits the news, they can evaluate it properly instead of just reacting emotionally. When they see new partnerships announced, they can understand the significance instead of just following sentiment. When the market dips, they're not panicking because they understand the thesis hasn't changed. Knowledge creates confidence, and confidence allows you to make strategic decisions instead of emotional ones. This is why education is so critical to positioning yourself in the 1%. Let's also address something that's really important for responsible investing. Cryptocurrency markets are inherently volatile, and XRP is no exception. The price can move dramatically in short periods. External factors like regulatory changes, market sentiment, global economic conditions, they can all have immediate impacts. This is why it's absolutely crucial that you only invest money you can afford to lose. You should never overextend yourself just because you're excited about an opportunity. You should never take out loans or go into debt to buy cryptocurrency. You should definitely do your own research and not just follow what anyone says, including what I'm saying in this video. And if you have significant questions about whether this investment makes sense for your specific situation, you should talk to a qualified financial advisor who understands both your personal circumstances and the crypto space. The biggest wealth transfers do reward those who position themselves strategically, but they always come with risk, and that risk has to be managed responsibly. Now, thinking about where XRP actually fits into the bigger picture of global finance, this is where things get really interesting. The financial system as it exists today is decades old. It's inefficient, it's expensive, it requires multiple intermediaries, but it's also deeply entrenched because billions of dollars and countless institutions are built around the way things currently work. Change in financial systems happens slowly, but when it does happen, it creates enormous opportunities for those who've positioned themselves ahead of time. XRP's technology and the institutional adoption that's already underway, these suggest that real change might be coming. Banks, payment providers, and financial institutions around the world are already testing and implementing solutions that use XRP. It's not theoretical anymore. It's not something that might happen in the future. It's happening now. When you combine this with the fact that trillions of dollars flow across borders every year, the potential scale of what XRP could become starts to become apparent. Even if XRP captures just a small fraction of that volume, the demand and adoption curve could accelerate dramatically. But again, this requires patience. This requires the ability to not panic when markets move against you. And this requires the discipline to position yourself now, before this becomes obvious to everyone. The fundamental insight here is that real wealth isn't created by following the crowd. It's created by seeing what the crowd cannot see, understanding it, and acting on that understanding while others are hesitant. In the case of XRP, this means recognizing that the biggest opportunity isn't about short-term price movements. It's about positioning yourself for what could be a systemic change in how global finance actually works. It's about understanding that banks and institutions don't test and implement new financial technologies casually. They do it because they see real value and real necessity. They do it because the current system is costing them money and creating inefficiencies that they want to solve. By taking time to understand this now, by positioning yourself during the accumulation phase when most people are skeptical or completely unaware, by maintaining conviction through volatility, and by staying disciplined in your approach, you're positioning yourself to benefit from something that most people will only notice long after the biggest moves have already happened. That's really what this comes down to. The choice is whether you want to be part of the 1% who sees it coming or the 99% who watches it happen. And that choice, honestly, is entirely up to you. As we wrap up, here's the key takeaway. XRP's wealth transfer is happening quietly. It's rewarding those who understand the fundamentals, those who have conviction, and those who can remain disciplined in the face of uncertainty. The accumulation phase is happening now. The awareness phase will come later. By the time the majority of people are talking about it, the best opportunities will have already passed. Position yourself wisely, educate yourself thoroughly, manage your risk responsibly, and think long-term. That's how you position yourself to be part of the 1% instead of the 99%. Thanks for watching XRP Pulse Report. If this content was helpful, please like, subscribe, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Stay informed, stay disciplined, and we'll see you on the next one.